Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This video might have a timestamp when the news start, or it might not. But I really want to address something that I experienced yesterday, especially yesterday, and it's related to the kind of videos that I post on most of Sundays. And yesterday I have posted a video that many of you have seen, in which I was giving you my few cents, my personal observations and opinions about reopening of the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris, in France, and the attendance of Donald Trump, Macron, well, he's the president of France, and of course Volodymyr Zelensky. Well, this of course is actually quite questionable, since doesn't he come from the Orthodox Church that he's destroying, by the way? So this is not about Christianity, this is about Satanism, and we, I think, know it, most of you do. However, I received a comment and I really want to address it. I'm not upset, I'm not aggravated, I'm not angry, because I see how many of you appreciate those kind of videos, and I'm doing this to express myself and to connect with those of you who are looking at the world from many different angles. Before I go to this description of my point, I received a comment in which someone, by the way, the comment is deleted and the person is blocked, because I will not allow disrespecting me, as you are claiming that the guests who I bring on my channel must be ashamed of being on my channel because I talk about things of that nature. What I can tell you is this: from now on, I will be asking just once each of my guests if they are ashamed to be having conversations with me, and I trust that they will give the most honest and sincere answer. I know that you probably will not watch those videos, or actually I will question that too. With this being said, I just want to say that where humanity is going, and the knowledge and the facts and the information that is going to soon, drip by drip, be revealed to many humans on this planet that are completely unaware what is and has been going on and is taking place, will make many people commit suicide because they won't be able to mentally handle it. So if we have people like that person who is approaching everything from a three-dimensional perception, very narrow, only mind focus, state of mind, that is actually quite dangerous, because if you don't activate your intuition, which is the most important one, and you don't come from a different level of understanding things, it will be hard for your mind to process it. And therefore, for many, many decades, it is the mind that the dark forces are trying and pretty much succeeding in manipulating it. The projects that have been going on, starting from the Nazi regime, the mind control, the media, this is all actually strictly directed to your mind. So if you only look at the reality and current events through the perception of your mind, you might never find the truth. That's why I'm trying to bring a little bit different content to my videos, and I know that many of you appreciate it. So to that person I say, I support you on your journey, but we just have to go different ways, because I cannot bring my energy down in order to satisfy your needs and your desires and your whatever you want me to deliver to you. This is not my role on this planet. That's how I perceive it. I will put the timestamp because I know many of you don't have patience for 5 minutes of me rambling. So on that note, I will just read one comment from yesterday, and there were many great comments and I deeply appreciate them. for the topic of that video, and one of those comments which says, from Dave Ski, who says, "Yes, Anya, I love this content and your delivery of it. It offers me, as an American, a very privileged perspective of things our mainstream media would never address. You are a wonderful journalist and friend. Thank you for your work, for your hard work, and be blessed." Thank you so much for your comment. I am not a journalist. I'm just a regular person who is making YouTube videos and bringing to you all sorts of information from Poland, other countries, something I pick up and I choose that brings value to you. And I have a deep interest in things that you cannot explain logically very often, but you know that they exist and then they take place. And many of you are on the same page, so we are on the same wavelength. Thank you so much for your comment. Now let's go to the topics that I have for you. I will start with the article that I came across last week, but I have not read this to you. And it's about very 3D topic, weapons trade booming worldwide, especially in Russia. So I'm going to read you about this trade of weapons, how well this is going now in the world, with some numbers and percentage. But before this, as many of you know, there was a meeting in Minsk, the capital of Belarus, between President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and the President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko. And in that meeting, that was a few days ago, President Putin has announced that Belarus will be receiving next year, in 2025, the second part, I believe, of next year, the new Oreshnik, or Oreshnik, that's how you say, missile that has been just launched a few weeks ago. And I'm going to read you this from Lukashenko, what he said. Just one second. Because this tells you the approach that Belarus has, and we all know this. I think as many are looking at different directions around Russia, I think Belarus might be that region that is going to be, as has been assumed for quite some time, Kaliningrad region might be the one that will be the entry point for escalation. This is just my perception, but let me read you what Lukashenko said. "Dear Vladimir Vladimirovich," he's addressing Putin, "we are very concerned about the situation in Western Europe, especially on our borders, especially from Poland and Lithuania, neighboring countries. We consider this to be an even greater danger than from the warring Ukraine. Already 15 kilometers away, which is very close to the border, they are deploying troops, and not only Poles and Lithuanians at the borders, but NATO armed forces from other countries, including Germany, are being pulled in there. That is the situation is very tense. Poland is spending huge resources on arming its army, but if they want to live in peace with us, as they say, then why spend billions of dollars on weapons? In short, this makes us very wary, and this is already a threat to our joint group of armed forces, which you spoke about today in your speech. In Astana, without agreeing with you, of course, I turned this into a joke, but what kind of joke can there be when we are talking about new weapons? Russia recently successfully launched the Oreshnik missile. This had a certain impact on our former partners, now rivals, and do not consider this as some kind of impudence. I don't know if I said this word correctly. I want to publicly ask you that new weapons system, the Oreshnik missile, to be deployed on the territory of Belarus. This would seriously calm some minds that are already ready to fight against Belarus as well as against Russia on the territory of Belarus, according to the concept of national security that you recently signed and we accepted today within the framework of the Union State. We have, and I said this seriously, certain places where we can deploy these weapons, with only one condition, that the targets for these weapons will be determined by the military political leadership of Belarus. But for now, you will train us to use those weapons if this is done so that specialists from the Russian Federation service and launch the Oreshink missile at certain targets. You know how to do this. You demonstrated it recently. This would significantly strengthen the defense of our union and, first of all, the Belarusian territory. I ask you to think about it and agree with my request. And Putin promised that, right? So he announced that this will be in the mass production. I don't know if it's already in the mass production. I think it is, but it will be deployed. Oreshnik will be deployed to Belarus in the second part of next year. And then what Lukashenko said, he said this. Let me see if I have it here. He said, let's see, I think I lost this. He said that if you want, that he learned that if you want to receive something from Putin, if you want Putin to promise you something, you have to ask him that publicly and he will do it. So he made kind of joke, but that's what's gonna take place, everyone. So now let's go to, as we are on the topic of weapons, earnings from weapons sales rose worldwide in 2023 according to Sweden-based Peace Research Institute, SIPRI. Arms manufacturers from Russia and the Middle East grew the most. So let's read this. The wars in Ukraine and the Gaza Strip are primarily driving demand for weapons and military equipment, but growing tensions in East Asia also have a role. In 2023, a total revenue of the world's 100 largest weapon producers grew to $632 billion. That is 598 billion euros, a 4.2 increase from 2022. This is according to a new report from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI, which analyzes the business figures of the 100 biggest arms makers. I just want to say, before we continue, the military-industrial complex, so this topic, and the human trafficking, two most profitable businesses in the world. I repeat this many times, but just as a reminder, which actually one stimulates another. The biggest development in 2023 was how especially European and US companies are finally able to translate rising demand from the war in Ukraine into actual increasing revenue. In 2022, we saw a lot of companies were struggling with COVID pandemic, supply chain disruptions, and were having difficulty ramping up their productions. Russian weapons companies recorded the biggest increase in 2023. According to SIPRI researchers, their income increased by 40%. Russia had initially hoped for a quick victory over Ukraine. Well, I'm reading you this, so you make your own mind. When that did not materialize, Moscow ordered weapons production to ramp up. According to the report, rockets, tactical aircraft, and drones were produced sometimes around the clock to compensate for the losses at the front. There is a reason only 2 Russian companies are listed among the top 100 in the world. Most companies stopped publishing financial figures since 2022. But not all. The Stockholm-based researchers analyzed the data from Rostec, which is ranked as the 7th largest armaments company worldwide, is actually a holding company of 6 or 8 different Russian companies that we used to have in our database. So it still gave a pretty good representation of how these companies are doing. Those are words from one of the researchers from this Swedish place where they do this research. So it still gave us a pretty good representation of how these companies are doing. The sole Ukrainian company in the top 100 is JSC, Ukrainian Defense Industry. Its revenue rose by 69%. Lots of money, huh? German manufacturers on the rise. For European weapons makers, excluding Russia, the war in Ukraine has had differing impacts. Some countries, such as France and Italy, recorded significant declines in revenue. The combined revenues of German companies, on the other hand, rose by 7.5%. In total, 4 German weapons producers are among the top 100 in the world. Rheinmetall, ThyssenKrupp, Hensoldt and Diehl. As the biggest German company, Rheinmetall ranks at the number 26 and was able to increase its revenues by 10%. Its products include 155 mm artillery ammunition, self-propelled howitzers and armed vehicles, equipment that has been in high demand due to the war in Ukraine. The company Diehl, which produced guided missiles and air defense systems, grew even more, reporting a revenue increase of 30% in 2023. Weak growth in Europe. This is the last, I think, is it? No, one of the last parts of this article. Despite the growth of individual companies, Europe was the region that experienced the least growth in the arms sector, with an increase of 0.2% in comparison to 2022. This can be attributed to low production capacities and comparatively low defense budgets. The list of the world's 100 weapons companies continues to be topped by United States giants Lockheed Martin and RTX, formerly Raytheon. Both reported slight drops in revenue in 2023. According to CIPRI, this is due to restricted availability of special components or raw materials which are required for aviation and the manufacturing of missiles. Demand is not the problem here, but rather the supply chains. In general, small manufacturers were able to ramp up their production more quickly than the big corporations in 2023. New situation in East Asia. In Asia, weapons makers from South Korea and Japan had significant revenue increases, a reaction to the rising tensions in the region. Since 2022, Japan has been massively arming itself to a level not seen since the end of World War II. South Korean weapons manufacturers have also managed to get a foot in the door of the European market. For example, the Hyundai Rotem company sold battle tanks to Poland. That's another story here, which I have been covering for some time. In China, where overall economic growth has slowed, the revenue for weapons companies rose only by 0.7% in 2023. This was the smallest recorded growth since 2019. According to Xiao Liang, so this is this person from the research, the Chinese weapons industry will remain on course for growth despite this. Record earnings for Israeli manufacturers. Six of the 100 largest weapons manufacturers are based in the Middle East. Their sales increased by 18% to $19.6 billion in 2023. After the beginning of the war in Gaza Strip, the revenue of the 3 Israeli weapons makers reached a record total of $13.6 billion. That was the highest value ever reported by the Israeli weapons producers in the top 100. Among these companies are the manufacturers of the Iron Dome protective system, which intercepts missile attacks on Israel. So there you have it, everyone. Follow the money, and it will give you many answers. Just use your mind, right? That's all you really need. Why there are wars? Why there is human trafficking? Just gonna end this video here. Thank you so much for watching. The link to this article will be attached down below this video in the description box. I want to thank everyone who is supporting my work on Patreon and Locals monthly. This really keeps me going, and I appreciate it immensely. Thank you to everyone who donates on PayPal. It means a lot to me. For your subscription, for your likes and your comments, I am immensely grateful. And if you choose to follow me on Instagram, you have a little bit lighter content, just some travel pictures, especially lately from Russia, that are very beautiful. And to those of you who are interested, you can purchase the book that I collaborated on with Scott Ritter, Covering Ukraine, the Scott Ritter interviews through the eyes of Anya Kay, from Amazon or directly from the publisher. Lots of love, and remember, we are the leading edge and we are saving humanity. Bye everyone.